we'd like to welcome you to another episode of your favorite show on a Tuesday. This is, as it always has been, Home Bars Live. And this is like our pre-Christmas edition, which, most TV shows and shows have like some superstar guests and stuff like that. So I figured we'll kind of keep with that tradition and do it right. So today, featuring us, joining us today is going to be Susan Coss, which if you don't know, you are going to get to know quite a bit about her and some of the amazing things that she does in the industry, as well as for the love of agave, because who doesn't love agave? So, as always, I'm Mo Brooks in San Francisco, and let's get this thing started. So, Susan, how are you doing today?
Oh, hello. Flashing lights. Yes. Hi from Alameda, just across the bay. So I miss my San Francisco days. But I'm just going to say, I liked your opening riff. I loved your opening riff. But as a classic Gen Xer, my response to is, whatever, hopeful, whatever. Yeah, it'll happen. But hi, it's good to see you, especially good to see you without a mask.
Yeah, so last time we hung out, we were socially distanced and masked up, and it was a great time at Mescal in a Bottle for sure. But let's just get this thing started. It is Home Bars Live. You seem to have a nice little bar set up behind you. You want to give us a little tour of your setup back there?
A little tour. Can I do it from my chair and just
Of course you can. Oh yeah.
Because I'm that lazy. So it's a mess because everything is a mess right now with trying to get things arranged with the Christmas table. I have a little table here that kind of features everything within easy reach of things. My mother lives with me, so it's things that she might want to drink. So we have that there. And then in the back corner is just like 3 tiers of different mezcals that I'm working on. So I do private virtual tastings. So I have mezcal for that, gifts from different people, working on tasting notes, just different types of projects. I was saying earlier that I have a teenager. So the focus the past couple of years has been how to get the hard alcohol out of easy range of a teenager. The temptation is too much, even though he swears he does not like mezcal. Teenagers, we've all been there.
Exactly.
So I have mezcal stashed around in different parts of the house, hidden, and a lot of that stuff is what I like to call the things that only get pulled out for very special people. So I have a collection of autocanos because I love autocanos that just like sit in the back of a cabinet, and anytime somebody is over and they're like, hey, what do you have that's like really special? And I'm like, oh, let me pull this out. So I have a bottle of a Real Minero Araucano that was rested in glass for, I want to say 20, 25 years.
Wow.
So I figure that's going to be the thing that pays for college education for my teenager. So, yep. But it's kind of crazy to live among so much mezcal in a time when people can't come over and share it, so it's weird. It's weird.
So do you find yourself almost kind of being like, you're like the Batgirl of like mezcal? You have like all these secret compartments and like it's a button, and then like this bottle comes down and you're like, this is from so and so, so and so, so and so, and then hold on, boop, and then something comes down from the ceiling.
Yep, trapdoors and everything. Well, it fits with like kind of how we got started in doing events. The precursor to Mexico in a Bottle was an underground event called Music Art Mezcal. It happens at a art gallery in San Francisco. And we just ran a speakeasy in the back room. And people, it wasn't that you had to have the password to come back, but you had to know enough about the space to be like, oh, what's through that door? And kind of wander back there. And it was just a lot of fun. That started in 2012. And when, mezcal hadn't even really hit the limelight in any way. So it's a great opportunity to introduce people to stuff that, basically I was bootlegging up from Oaxaca. So wild and crazy times that then morphed into I guess we should be legal about this.
The crazy 2012. So give everyone a little bit of your background. Like, were you like a hardcore bartender that fell in love with mezcal? Were you like this, like, were you just like the bookworm that just fell in love with booze? Like, what was kind of your journey into where you are now?
So I will say, I like to drink. I come from a family of moonshiners, bar managers, liquor store owners. My one side of the family in Western Maryland, and so I loved beer. I went to the University of Wisconsin. I drank a lot of really good beer. If I had to pick up some money, I would do some bartending shifts, which basically consisted of pouring beer in a shot or maybe a mixed drink. So I am not a bartender. That is not my background. I was the other side of the bar. Luckily, I was taught how to properly behave with bartenders, putting your money on the table, at the get-go, all this little protocol from my grandfather. But no, I was a food person. And I got into mezcal because of traveling in Oaxaca for food purposes and wanting to understand more about food, and really being interested in craft production, not necessarily spirits, and then meeting people throughout my time in Oaxaca that really turned me on to mezcal, but turned me on to it in a way that was more like, I want to hear these stories. Marketing background, writer, so I love hearing people's stories, being able to tell stories, and it really resonated. Everything about being in Mexico resonated. I loved it, and so things just kind of fell into what eventually became Mezcalistas. But it all just started, the people who got to, who I became friends with in Oaxaca, none of us were in the mezcal industry because this was 2007, 2008. So we're artists, we're chefs, we're food people. We get along, we have a good time, we dance all night, we drink mezcal. And then, 5 years later, we find ourselves all in this mezcal universe. And it just was an interesting kind of progression. But my interest in mezcal really is on the production side, the agricultural side, who the people are who are making it, the stories around it. And I will say that I am the worst person to go into tasting notes and flavors and things like that, because it's not my vocabulary. It's not really what I'm interested in. Don't ask me to make a cocktail because I'll make you a Negroni, or I'll put mezcal in the Trader Joe's blood orange Italian soda or something like that. But I want to sit down and hear stories about who's making mezcal, then happy to have you at my table and we can talk ad nauseum about that. But yeah, humble beginnings.
Awesome. So do you remember the first time you had mezcal and where you were and kind of that moment of that oh shit moment of being this is, what is this?
Yes. I was in Oaxaca in 2003. It was around Dia de los Muertos, and I had heard about mezcal. So I was like, oh, I guess I should try this. I was a tequila drinker. I liked whiskey, bourbon. So we were in the market, the Benito Juarez market. There are all those stands with mezcal and people trying to hand you mezcal to taste. So I did. And it was like, ugh, this is mezcal. I don't like this. And, it might have been, I don't even know what stand it was, but I remember the mezcal being slightly yellow. And I couldn't understand what the big deal was. And so I kind of lost interest. And then we were at a Dia de los Muertos party at the cemetery in Oaxaca, and a big comparsa came in, and there was dancing and music, and it was really crazy and beautiful. And somebody had a bottle of well, I didn't know what it was, but they had a bottle of something, and they were pouring shots and handing them out to people. And I tasted it. I was like, oh my God, what is this? This is delicious. And the guy looked at me like I was crazy, and he was like, mezcal. And from then on, I was really curious. So it's the crazy story is we ended up a few days later hiring a driver to go out to Teotitlán del Valle. In 2003, the road, there was no highway. It was a rough road. It was a dirt road to get into Teotitlán del Valle. We were looking at rugs, and as we were leaving town, I asked our driver if he knew of a good place to try mezcal. And he was like, oh, you want to try some good mezcal? And I was like, yeah. Like, turned around on the highway, did this U-turn. We go down this dirt road. We end up in front of this metal door. The driver gets out, he bangs on it. We hear these gruff voices, and the door opens, and there's this guy standing there who it turned out was Ron Cooper. And we walked into his garage, and he sat us down on stools, and we proceeded to taste Del Maguey mezcal. So my first official mezcal tasting was actually with Ron Cooper.
That's pretty sweet.
It's a crazy story. That was 2003. And I, never knew that what the road, certainly it was not like I went back to the US and said, oh my God, mezcal, this is it. Now I have to do everything mezcal related. It just kind of evolved over time. And it wasn't until 2012 when we launched Mezcalistas officially. So yeah, but it's a funny story. And in fact, people would think that I might have a closer relationship with Ron Cooper than I actually do. We've only ever been live and in person with one another 3 times. So the first time was that, mezcal tasting. Another time was randomly running into him at In Situ. And the third time was when he was here in San Francisco doing a book signing. So he was our harshest critic when we first started Mezcalistas. But yeah, I know people always assume like, oh, you and Ron must be so close. And it's just like, no, we're not. We correspond, through obviously email and Facebook, but it's been an interesting journey, I'll say.
So it's Christmas time, and we've been seeing lights and wreaths and things going up for the past month and a half. So as a kid, what was one of maybe your favorite gifts that you got? And what was one of those gifts that you got that like you wanted to say something to your parents or to whoever gave it to you, but as you can't say nothing, you just look, really? Y'all did not look at my list at all. What is this?
Oh yeah. It's actually kind of a family joke. Christmas is a little traumatizing for me. It ended up being that I became the one in charge of putting all the lights and the ornaments on the tree. People would just like slowly disappear when it happened. And in fact, right now we have a naked Christmas tree because I am holding firm on, I am not doing this by myself. So until you teenager come up with a plan, that tree will be naked because I don't care. But like my favorite Christmas presents. So I'm of Gen X, so I'll just put that out there so people aren't like, what the hell is she talking about? But I do believe that it was my Sean Cassidy lunchbox that I got one year for Christmas. And that was really amazing and cool. And then there might have been the Malibu Barbie with her really cool convertible car. So those are 2 very memorable gifts for me. My favorite Christmas memory was probably my sister when she got a bike, and she went out on the street with the bike. And while she was riding it, the bike kind of split in 2 and separated. And so this was back at a time when it was totally appropriate to tell Polish jokes, and the bike just happened to be Polish made. So it lent itself to years and years and years of jokes and jokes and jokes. So that was an awesome Christmas for me. That was the traumatizing Christmas for my sister. But hands down, there was one Christmas, and I would very meticulously put together a list, and hoping that one gift. Generally, it was ignored, but this one year, I was very clear. All I wanted was a robe. I wanted a nice, fluffy white robe, just a robe, and I ended up getting this terrible, awful pink robe. This is fuchsia. This is not pink, by the way, when I say I hate the color pink. And I was just like, what the fuck? Like, did you not understand, the word like white fluffy robe? And then it was accompanied by beige flannel king size sheets. I do not have a king size bed. I don't know where the color beige came from. It was pretty awful. It was just like one of those things of really.
So not only did you not get the robe you wanted, but then you just got some big ass sheets for no reason.
I know, exactly. It was just like, okay. So that now it's just like anytime I'm asked, what do I want for Christmas? And I'm like, I don't know. Does it really fucking matter what I want for Christmas?
Well, I think it was the idea that how like you get clothes and they say like eventually you'll grow into your clothes. Mm-hmm. I guess maybe they figured they were getting you sheets for a future bed because your bed would grow into a bigger bed. I don't know, but I don't sheets know. Is kind of cold business. Yeah. So mescalistas has been such an amazing thing that you've been doing for a while. For the people that don't know about mescalistas, want to let them know kind of like what you do, kind of some of the cool things that you have going on, as well as I also read that you guys recently put out a cool project program, if you want to call it, about building a home bar, if you want to touch on that as well too.
Yeah, so mescalistas is, if I'm my 30-second elevator pitch, we're a media events and consulting company. But really we started off as a blog. We ran, tasting events out of my apartment, and then the parties, underground parties at a gallery in San Francisco. The whole idea, it was not a business when we started. Max Garoni, co-founder, and we'd love to write. We enjoyed drinking mezcal, and we were like, hey, let's just, launch this blog and get other people to try mezcal. And, our tagline is, we like mezcal and think you should too. So over the years, we have just, the blog has covered the issues and stories in mezcal. The website itself has grown so that we have a database, we have tasting notes, we have information about touring mezcal country in Mexico, some recommended tour guides. It's kind of overwhelming sometimes when I look at it, which was why it was really great that we were able to do a website redesign this year so that it's laid out a little bit clearer. You get a better idea of just all the information that we have. And it's really like how to make it one-stop shopping for people who want to learn more about mezcal. So we have a whole Mezcal 101 tutorial. We have a page of recorded conversations with people in the industry around different topics. We try to write for people who are new to mezcal, and then also for people who are, real aficionados, or, people in the industry wanting to know what the business news is around it. And, for this year, this fall, we actually did two things. We put together our first holiday gift guide for the mezcal lovers out there, which was kind of a broad range of suggested books, agave combo packs, different, food vendors that had really great stuff that pairs well with mezcal. It was kind of far reaching. I will say it's a pain in the ass. I don't know how people do it every year, create these holiday gift guides. And at that same time, we thought it would be a good idea to kind of help guide people through the process of building your home mezcal bar and just kind of the things to do. And the other thing that we really wanted to show was in this kind of guide, we put in pictures of our different mezcal bars at home so that people could see like how simple they can be, and they don't have to be these complex things, and you don't have to get hung up on, do I have the right kind of cabinet? Like, are these placed, in the right way? But just, to kind of break down the barriers to get people more comfortable with how you would go about building a home mezcal bar. And, it's like, what are some of the essential things that you need? Recommending that you have a few different types of mezcal cocktail, because things taste different depending on the type of cocktails that you're making. And then how you just go about building a collection and things to look at, and different types of agave species and how you can focus on that. So it was a lot of fun. And it actually made me kind of clean up my home bar a little bit. So put it more organized. The office bar is very organized because it just needs to be. That's, cataloging and using a lot of the information there usually when doing tastings out in the real world. So it's just been, it's been an interesting response from people on it. And after I sent out the newsletter that featured that piece, I started getting emails back from people with pictures of their home mezcal bars or their home bars. And that was really cool, to see people. And to know that it kind of broke down pressure that people might feel to have something absolutely perfect to show out into the world. So, I'll say on your show, it has been great seeing your interviews with bartenders and kind of seeing their setups at home too, because I'm sure a lot of people think that, it's going to be this, like crazy, huge, back wall selection of stuff. And it's like, no, it's,
Yeah.
some people, yes, but not everybody.
Yeah. It's one of those things that I've been very happy and kind of like, and blessed to be able to kind of share that side of things, because again, if you know someone that's a chef and you immediately think when you go to a chef's house, they're going to have like the best meat, the best this, they're going to have the sharpest knives, they're going to have like the best pots and pans. And half the time you go to their house and it looks just like your kitchen. It's like, we're just like you, and the beauty of it too, though, is I think that it also shows kind of the ingenuity that some of us have with the amount of space that we have, because space is and I think you would know, because you have like the back closets, how much of a premium space is. So then you have to, at times, maybe move something you don't want to move, or put something away you don't want to put away, but at this current time, it's taking up space for something else that's needed. So to talk about space, which is something we haven't had too much of this year during the COVID, what are some of the things that you've been doing besides work? Because you've done a lot of that. What are some of the things you've been doing besides work to kind of keep it going, and I guess build a new routine in this new normal?
That's a hard question to answer, because it has been all about work. And I say that because, much like mezcal brands, 80% of our revenue stream at Mezcalistas came from events that we were doing. And to have to all of a sudden totally reorganize your business model in order to kind of survive for the year. It was like, what can we do? So there was so much of a focus on, planning out, cash flow management, all of this stuff that's very boring, things that I never thought that I would really have to do seriously with Mezcalistas. making decisions like, I don't know, how long is this going to last? Should we do a website redesign, or should I put that on hold? Like, how much cash is that going to eat up? So much of my, for the first 3 months was all about looking at how we could find ways to just pay for monthly costs, so that didn't become part of, eating away at any of the cash on hand. And then there was, all the work on the web redesign, which was a huge amount of work. There was still writing. There was, trying to do an online, virtual speakers series, which we will be starting up again in January. It was looking at how to put together merchandise to be able to sell, to get money in that way. Doing all sorts of outreach around virtual private tastings with companies, for employee benefit programs. So I am highly jealous at people who are like, oh, what are you doing around self-care? And I'm like, fucking self-care, who has time for that? Like, I'm trying to make sure that we're still here at the end of the year. And anytime it looked like, okay, now things are going to slow down a little bit and I can take a deep breath and I can like move forward and find something relaxing to do, it just, something else would come up. So the biggest thing is I'm taking a vacation. I am going to be out of pocket from December 24th to January 4th. Yes, I'll still be posting on social media, but those are all going to be calendared ahead of time. And because I really need a reboot. And then the other thing that's going to happen at the start of the new year is I'm joining a jump roping club, and I've been dealing with plantar fasciitis because of course that's what you need when the only thing you can do is go out and outside and exercise. So yay, have plantar fasciitis. So but now it's like pretty much all healed. So I never thought that I would say these words. I'm so looking forward to jumping rope.
Tell me how that goes. As someone that jumping rope for me was something I love boxing. I box and, a lot of stuff, but jumping rope for me, I think also too, just knee issues that I've had, jumping rope was just not the business. But I gotta admit, it's something that is amazing for you. And like when I got a couple of homies that could jump some rope, and I look at them and I'm like, ooh, that's real nice. I'm gonna do some burpees and call it a day. But that jumping rope stuff is real nice.
Yep. I'm not gonna lie. My total inspiration for this is Mariah. She, she's been in the industry for a long time, and during the whole pandemic, she's been in LA and she started doing like a whole jump rope program. And I am just like, damn, not only do you have great hair, but God, I want my ass to look like that again, And so she's been the total inspiration. She's been giving tips and everything like that. So I am very, very thankful to have that model of somebody who really started from not jumping rope to now really being such a great pro. So.
Yeah, she's a monster. Giuseppe as well. If you don't follow him, he's also a jump roping monster.
Okay.
But yeah, there's definitely, and I think one of the cool things too is how there is inspiration out there for people to get motivated, to want to say, yo, I'm going to make a change, because it's hard when your routines and your normal life has kind of just been taken from you and thrown in the gutter. So it's made you have to pivot. So let's pivot. We're gonna take another quick little pivot.
We can't say that word anymore. I'm done with that word.
Okay, we're gonna drop step towards the basket, and we're gonna lead with our left hand, and you're gonna shield off the inside defender with the right elbow. So as we drop step, what is the one Christmas song that comes on and you like, oh yeah, And what is the one Christmas song that comes on that you look at whoever touched the radio last and you want to punch him in the face?
Okay. Oh, this is I just want to say with Christmas music, the house has always been dominated by basically 4 Christmas albums. Johnny Mathis, Emmylou Harris, Ray Conniff, and Elvis Presley. So,
I've never heard any of those Christmas albums in my life.
Oh my God, I'm just going to say you have not lived until you have the Johnny Mathis Christmas album. So like back in the days when there were albums, these things called records, the one side was like modern Christmas music, like Blue Christmas or, I'll Be Home for Christmas. And then the other side was the traditional carols. So beautiful stuff. Emmylou Harris is just like a crazy mix of, more country music, but Emmylou Harris, it's hard to call her country music. But spirituals, Elvis Presley. You haven't heard the Elvis Presley Christmas album?
No.
Okay, so obviously different generation, but
I know who he is. I just in my house, I mean, like Elvis just wasn't like sliding across the floor on Chris. We had Jackson 5 album and some other ones.
Yeah, well, and then the Ray Conniff singers, that was like 1960s, and that is all because of my grandparents who loved the Ray Conniff singers, and so it was kind of choral. And their version of Sleigh Ride is, the quintessential version that's out there. So like a lot of the music that we listen to here at the house is just pure, like just nostalgia on things. But in all seriousness, the Johnny Mathis Christmas album is amazing. By the time Mariah Carey Christmas album came out, that was very much in my punk disaffected San Francisco years. So I was not listening to Mariah Carey. I have much greater appreciation of the song now than I did back then. So yeah, I mean, it's but Christmas music, it is what it is. I will cry, and in fact, this happened the other day when I was grocery shopping, and over the loudspeaker was Judy Garland's "Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas," and there are songs now, especially since we're stuck at home, we're not going to be able to do large family gatherings. Very much from the World War II era, when it was all just kind of about, maybe I'll be home for Christmas, I'll see you in my dreams, have yourself a merry little Christmas. And I burst into tears. I just started sobbing. And the person with her cart next to me just kind of looked at me like, are you okay? And it was like, I'm fine. But there are just moments like that where it's like, okay. And I mean, usually it always makes me weepy anyhow, but full on crying out in public and sobbing, like that was definitely a new one. And very much pandemic related. So what about you? What do you listen to?
I have to say that I agree with you fully on the songs will come on and like full-blown tears will happen. I recently was in Louisiana with my grandmother and my aunt, and bye to them, and it's the last day and I'm getting ready to get on the airplane. And I am sitting in the back of the truck, and as I'm pulling up to the airport, I just start because I'm like, I'm thinking, I'm gonna go see my granny and my auntie. So, those moments are definitely things that in these times I think we cherish more because it hasn't been a normal year. And I would have to say for me, one of my favorite Christmas songs is like Little Drummer Boy, because as a kid, I was in this play at this daycare that I went to, and I was a little drummer boy, and I had like a little drum and stuff, and I got to go up, and I was like, it was my only drum in life ever, and I killed it. So for me, that is a highlight. And the song that I don't like probably is one of the Mariah Carey Christmas songs, because I love Mariah Carey, but there's a certain point that I don't need a banshee singing Christmas to me. And she started hitting them notes, and I'm like,
Right.
yo, Mariah, baby girl, it's Christmas. I got
Oh,
ornaments that are made from glass. I got stuff in here crackling. Like, could you stop with the? So anyway, I'm gonna be someone that says it. Some of Mariah Carey's Christmas songs, if you put them on and you the last one to put it on, you might get tackled. I'm just saying, don't do it. Ashanti also too, her Christmas songs are
really,
trash. They
really.
are.
It's hard. There's just a lot of modern Christmas music that's not very good. Well, okay, so when I was a kid growing up, I grew up in Washington, D.C., and I lived in this neighborhood called Chevy Chase, which was a very nice neighborhood. It was
You
definitely upper
live,
middle class.
hold on, you live in a neighborhood called Chevy
Called Chevy,
Chase?
yes.
That's pretty gangster.
It is gangster. If only it had been named after Chevy Chase, but Chevy Chase was named after my Chevy Chase. So anyhow, for Christmas every year, on Christmas Eve, one of our neighbors organized like going Christmas caroling. So there would be a group of us, which was kind of funny because everybody who lived on the street was Christmas caroling. So you'd have to run up to your doorstep to hear the carolers before you moved on to the next house. And it was really wonderful and awesome. And we had on our block the Oarsmans, who were very, very, very wealthy. They owned the largest car dealership in the Washington, D.C. area. And they had a big, huge Christmas Eve party, and it was fancy with gowns and tuxedos. And they got to the point where they would start calling ahead to the guy who organized the caroling to request that we be there at a specific time and that we sing a specific song. So as if they were the lords of the manor, and we were just so we were all like, fine, we'll go ahead and do this. And one year it was bitterly cold, like we're talking minus 10 degrees, and we're out there, we're all bundled up, we're trying to sing. We get to the Oarsmans, the door opens up, there's the party in full swing. The butler comes out with hot cider for us to drink. And, so we have some hot cider, we sing Jingle Bells for them. And my mom, who just was like so pissed off about like how the Oarsmans thought that they could do this, in her like bundled attire, she walks up to the front door and says to the butler, "Please, sir, may I have some more?" And it was just like one of those memories that will always, I think I might have been 8 years old or something like that, but I will never forget that because it was just like so brilliant. And the irony of it all. But that was kind of one of my great Christmas stories.
So as
we arrested at the Yule log down on the National Mall because the park police showed up. You don't want to fuck with the park police, number one. They're real badasses in DC. They're like way worse than the regular police force. So friends and I had gone down to look at the Yule log, and park police officer comes over and he's like, "Okay, well it's closing time, so you guys need to get out of here." And I looked at him and I said, "Christmas knows no hours," and then was immediately pushed up against the fence, threatened with handcuffs, almost arrested. And I was like, God, somebody needs a sense of humor. Like, it's Christmas. So anyhow, that was, don't fuck with the park police.
Well, yeah, I fortunately have not been close to arrested on or near a Yule log, because that definitely sounds like a story to tell. You know that day Grandpa got arrested by the Yule log? It sucked. It really sucked.
Talk about a call I'd never want to make to my parents. No, by the way, can you come down to the Park Police Jail and bail my ass out because I got arrested at the Yule log.
That I mean those are also too the stories that make like those things that someone would be like, hey man, remember that one time we was hanging out in the Yule log? Hey man, that Yule log was crazy though. Man, we went to the slammer. It was like they didn't let us out till like after Christmas and shit. It was crazy. I think it was like the fourth day of Kwanzaa. I don't know what day it was, but it was Yule logging, man. It was crazy in there.
Yeah.
I
will say, I'm sorry, I was gonna say, I feel like, one of the things in seeing the world, become on the one hand so much larger because of technology, but on the other hand so much smaller, because everybody ends up occupying their own like very curated space, and that those kinds of crazy interactions and stories like just don't happen in the same way, like being live and outside in the world and doing those things. Like, today you think about how many parents are going to allow their kids to just like jump on the bus and like go into the city and wander around and, do all of those things because everybody's so scared that something terrible is going to happen. And, so it's like, yeah, something terrible almost happened. I almost got arrested by the Yule log, but, it's okay.
It's the story that I tell. Like I had a story that I went cliff diving and I almost drowned. Like I tell my friends and family all the time, yo, hey, I almost drowned. I had mild hypothermia, but you know what? I'm still here. So take it from me, go dive off of cliffs. It's gonna work out well for you.
Right there with you on that. Except, I'm like, now that I have a teenager and he's a boy and he's all boy and all active, it's like I definitely have to be careful of what I say because I don't want to prompt any ideas on things that, well, she did it, so maybe I should be able to do it. And then, he'll say things like, well, once I'm done with high school, wait until the stories I have to tell you. And I'm like, okay, well, number one, you don't want to tell me those stories because there's still stories that I'm not telling my own mother of things that I did when I was in high school. There's no statute of limitations on that sort of stuff.
True.
But so it's been very interesting having a teenager and trying to raise him in these times.
So one of the things I did want to ask you, because, we remember when pagers first came out, we remember like when you could still like 35 cents was still, you could use that for like a payphone and you could actually have a conversation with someone. And then when you remember when you used to have to remember phone numbers, you remember how smart our brains used to be because you had, every person had at least 10 numbers down packed. And this is like you had immediate family, then you had like 2 or 3 of your homies, and then like you might have had someone that you might have been dating at the time. They're kind of like in that lower tier of, but all those numbers you had in your head. You could hit the rotary joint and you knew how many clicks it was when you was listening to it, how much time you had to talk to someone else before they started ringing. Right. That being said, what are some of the things that you miss from those days that I for me, it definitely would probably be the phone and kind of how personal phone calls used to be and how impersonal they are now, because there's so many other ways to know what's going on in someone's life versus having to pick up a phone and actually having to call them and talk to them.
No, I mean, I might agree with you on that because I think that, that speaks to so much more because, back in the olden days when we didn't have cell phones, a plan was a plan, so it's like, oh, I'll meet you at such and such a time at such and such a place. And it's like, okay, well, you kind of had to do that. because you had no way of getting a hold of somebody to say, by the way, the plans changed. We're actually going to do this. And I miss that. I miss how today it's like everything is just completely fluid, and it can change at the last minute, which sometimes is fine, but a lot of times it's just like, and but what else do I miss? I miss that, there were times you couldn't talk to people. You would get a busy signal, or the big thing was call waiting, when that came in, that it just wasn't 24/7 all the time. And it gave you the opportunity to read interrupted. It just gave you the opportunity to do things and focus just on one thing at a time, rather than 10,000 different things that were going on. So, I feel sorry for a lot of the kids today that don't even know what it's like to only do one thing at a time. It's, and it makes for restlessness. And here's what I really miss: handwriting. Because raising a kid these days, like, they don't really care about handwriting, because you immediately go to the computer where you're typing all the time. And there is something for me about the direct connection of the physical activity of writing something, and then how that translates into your brain. And it reinforces like what is being said or being done. And so I miss that. Like, I'm going to write a note. I'm going to write a letter. I'm going to write something, because the typing just isn't the same thing.
So now we came from like having you used to have to know how to spell. Spelling, you used to have to know how to spell. There was no little keyboard to spell check. That did not exist. You had to know how to spell. Like, you sounded it out, you figured it out. Now, as adults, I think we've all lost a little bit of that. So what is that one word that when you're texting or writing or something, now you find yourself just like, God damn it, I know how to spell this. Wait, hold on. What's maybe not two words that you it just gets you, because you know how to spell it. But then you look at it a couple times, you got to be like, I think that's right.
It's okay. So there are two words, definitely. One of the words is what plagued me as a kid. Tomorrow, spelling tomorrow. Always misspelled that as a kid. Always have to double check it, like when I'm looking at it now. And then more recently is palette.
Ooh. Palete?
I believe so, but then I have to like write it down and look at it and be like, is that what I mean? Palate? Is it Pallet? It is very. So those are two things that get me going. But I love the fact that kids aren't taught. They're not taught cursive today, so they can't write in cursive. So I can pass all sorts of notes to my mother, and he has no idea. Tell me what it says, and it's just like, well, if you learned how to write in cursive, you would know what it says.
Like, cursive was like the smoothest thing ever, because like your pen just danced on the page. You look down at it and he had all these squiggles and circles, and it was a sentence at the end of it. And then, like, what was like a couple of words in cursive that you just enjoyed writing? Like, my name is Maurice. So once I got like my cursive, I used to love spelling my name in cursive and just put a little on the end of it. What were some of your favorite cursive words?
I loved, and I still love, serendipity. Number one, I love the word, but then I love how it just like, the swirls and everything. I love serendipity. But that would be one. It's really, I'm raising my nephew, who's now now 16 and a half years old. I never thought that I would ever have kids. And so I took on raising him when he turned 8. And it has been crazy, everything that I have had to learn. And number one, how to raise a kid, but then also like, oh, wait, you have to teach kids how to do that because they don't know already. Like, how do they not know? Ding, ding, ding. Oh, that's what being a parent is all about. So it has been, like teaching him or working with him on all of these different things. And I'm trying to remember what his favorite word is, that when he was a kid that he loved hearing. He just thought it was crazy. And he thought it was also a bad word. But I think it was serendipitous, where, he just heard that and he was like, oh, that's a bad word. Like, no, it's not. It's probably going to be very important in your life.
Yeah. I mean, I miss the days of like long division, when like long division was still taught and not lattice and some of these other things that are taught now. I used to work as an educator, and I remember like being in school and the kids would be like, Mr. Mo, how do I do this math? And I'd show them long division and like the way that we learned how to do it. And they would look at me like I was literally like a dinosaur. We're like, what is that? Are those hieroglyphs? Like, how do you put this on this and then this? And then, I'd come to find out that there's a whole new method of teaching. And the cool thing is, though, is some of it is based in the things that we learned. It's just that, we are so far removed from it because as adults, long division and some of those things go away real fast because you have no one is doing long division to figure out how to add up the groceries. No one is dividing the 4 from the 2, then the 2 to the 3, then carrying the 4 over into the remain. Nah, we're not. No, there's no remainders.
Right.
But as we get close to our hour here, I did want to ask you a few more questions
About mezcal.
Actually, yes. So you had mentioned earlier Orange Canyon being one of your favorites. What are some of do you have any in particular that you really enjoy where the mezcal comes from? And outside of Orange Canyon, what are some of your favorite other plants to drink the juice from?
It's really interesting. I was telling somebody the other day that anytime I have a mezcal from Miwatlan area, I can totally identify it as that. Across all agaves, etc. And because it has mezcal from there has such a distinctive flavor that I think is linked to the soil content and a little bit of the water, but it's just like, I have a pretty decent taster, but not like a lot of people in the industry. But there are times when it's like, I have a mezcal, it's not labeled, and I'm like, oh shit, this is really good. Where is this from in Miwatlan? And people are like, how do you know it's from Miwatlan? And I'm like, oh, it's just got that flavor to it. I think sometimes that might be due to the single distillation style that's used in some areas. But I think more so just what the terroir is like in that region. I also I have come to love Salmianas. And I feel like that is an agave that has such bold flavors to begin with, that pretty much at any ABV that I've tasted it at, I had one that was 38%. Like, never in my life would I think that I would be like, oh, that's a good mezcal. Was delicious at 38%, delicious at 54%. And I just think there's something about the sugar content in Salmianos or whatever that make it a really good, consistent flavor for mezcal. I mean, I like super big, bold tastes. I'm not like delicate mezcal. It's very nice. It's not my jam. So anything that just, it's like a big round Italian red, it just fills my mouth. That's what I'm going to like. And I used to do these tastings at Lolo restaurant in San Francisco. Like I would take over part of the bar and with 8 people. And I would always bring a mezcal that I would, had picked up in the street in Oaxaca, and I would call it Mezcal de la Calle. And I would have people taste it and just explain, this is a mezcal that has not been adulterated for a different palate. Like this is what locals drink, and it can be rough. It just, it has a very different thing. And we would taste through, like 6 or 7 mezcals. And then inevitably people would be like, I really like that first one that we had. And I just don't think we give a lot of credit to people of liking those bigger, bolder mezcals. I mean, the one thing that I appreciate really and truly about the Vago product line is that it is so unapologetically like flavor forward. It's like I've never had one where I want to say, oh, that was nice.
Yeah.
Where it's like I'm gonna have some, and then I'm gonna do a little dance, like, oh my god, that was so good, which is how I react to mezcal that I really like. But I also think that the espadín, people like just kind of brush it off, like, and I've said this before, oh, it's just an espadín, and I'm like, are you kidding me? Like espadíns are amazing because like that's where you can really taste the variables that go into making a mezcal. So, where is it from? Who's making it? What was in the air that day? What kind of water is being used? And there are like amazingly delicious espadines out there. You can never get tired of finding different ones. So that was a long answer to not have to answer specifically, like, what is my one mezcal?
Well, no, I mean, I think you really hit it on the head, and the beauty of mezcal is that there's such an array of just fantastic flavors that it is kind of hard to just pick one, and I come to find that certain people have favorite regions for sure, but being able to pick just one particular agave is kind of hard to do. So if you were able to open your own palenque anywhere you wanted to, and you were able to produce one, maybe you were doing like every year you do a special one-off, where would you have it, and what agave would you use for it?
Okay, I'm gonna say I would never in a million years open my own palenque, because that is hard work, and I just I don't have it in me.
Okay, well, you're gonna George Clooney this thing and just come in.
What I will say is I had always wanted to open a mezcaleria, and I think that it really sucks that given the way most alcohol laws are, is you really can't have a mezcaleria in the true sense of you can taste product and then you can buy a bottle, because I don't want to own a bar, but I want to be able to have people taste things and then like take something home with them. Until maybe alcohol laws change, or it doesn't cost like $300,000 for a liquor license in San Francisco, but that would be, for me, my dream is to have a little mezcaleria. But we'll see.
Fair enough. Well, Susan, I wanted to thank you so much for coming on and joining me. This has been a great way to kind of send all the people at home off into their holidays with a bunch of smiles, laughs, and some knowledge. Before we leave, is there anything else you want to share before we get out the door?
I want to say thank you because I never really get to talk to you because the only time I see you are at events, and it's just like, and we're always just like, hey, how's it going? Yeah, it's good. Like, here's a toast. So this has been so awesome to hang out with you and chat. So thank you.
Of course. Thanks for coming on. This has been, again, this has been such an amazing journey with this show and getting a chance to visit so many amazing people, you included. You are now part of the Home Bars Live family, and I look forward to actually checking in with you again after you go on your vacation and get to run away for a little bit. But
Yes.
this is we're gonna be getting out of here and saying goodbye to all the lovely people out there that's been checking in with us on this Tuesday. So for those of you at home that have been sitting here and listening to the lovely banter and the back and forth, we thank you and happy holidays. It's been a tough
Happy
year on all
holidays.
of us. We know it's not easy, but as we roll into the Xmas season, love, hug, kiss from afar if you can, and if you are close to your loved ones, give them a squeeze for me and Susan. But until then, we're going to be checking you guys out later. Same time, same place, baby. This is Home Bars Live. See you later, everyone.
Bye.
And then we normally break into